I'm being tested by myself. I did these edges myself. That's why they look so bad. The body knows things. I don't think I'd get bored of looking at the images. I love when tarot does the spooky thing. That felt too difficult and I didn't want to. Everything including the kitchen sink. I like to think, I like to talk. Hello everybody, it's Sylvie. Welcome or welcome back to Tarot Magpie. I hope you're doing all kinds of good. I've got a tag video for you today. This is the tarot emoji tag, emoji decks tag. I'm not sure, I will have it written in the title and the description, along with the original video by Simply Han, who created this. It's 10 prompts, 10 emojis, and then prompts for tarot decks based on those. I've already filmed this intro twice. Third time better be the charm. I'm gonna get straight into it. Prompt number 1 is the artist's paint palette, and the prompt for this is deck with your favorite art. I went with the Mary L Tarot, and I'm afraid I'm not zooming in because I fear knocking the camera yet again. So this is Mary L Tarot. This was actually my first physical tarot deck. The reason I bought this rather than a deck that aligned more closely with the Rider-Waite-Smith system, which I had been virtually learning. I was virtual learning before it was cool. I mean, it wasn't cool, we were in a pandemic. Anywho, I just loved the artwork, and I still do, which is why it is my response to this prompt. I believe these are oil paintings. I believe this took her years to create, and I can believe it. And I just think they are so stunning. I think they are so detailed. I love all of the different aspects and symbols that are in the deck. I just think it's so beautiful. This color palette is absolutely delicious. I love all of these turquoisey blues and like hot oranges and like vermilion reds. Like this 9 of Wands is so gorgeous. Oh, this is one of my favorite pages of discs. These like little beaded or embroidered little slippers, and just the details in this are so stunning. So stunning. This is one where this was actually on my October decks on my desk list. I haven't played with it too much yet, or about halfway through the month as I film this, and I really want to read the guidebook cover to cover. Because like this, like what is going on here? We've got the 2 pillars that look like the High Priestess pillars. There's water in the background too, but it's the 9 of Cups. And I'm like, what connection does the High Priestess have to the 9 of Cups? I'm intrigued. Oh my god, and there's the High Priestess. I love when tarot does the spooky thing. So like here we've got the black and the white pillars and the water in the background, and I'm just so curious. This, side note, one of my favorite High Priestesses of all time. This Magician. This is the 2nd edition mass market printing, because I think the Magician and I think it's the Hierophant were different in the 1st edition. So just to put that note out there. But I think this is so beautiful. This like Tower of Babel in the Hierophant. I need to read the guidebook. As in cover to cover. I have of course gone into the guidebook over the course of owning this deck, but it's so stunning. And when it came to choosing my favorite artwork, what an impossible task. It's like choosing a favorite child. But I think it's got to be this, because this inspired my first physical deck purchase, and I still think it's so beautiful. Even though I don't read with it all that often, I don't feel like I get it. Like, it's quite esoteric and complex, and there's lots of layers to it, and the guidebook could be like a whole doorstopper of a book. It's not, sadly. Like, there's just so much in here, but it's so beautiful, there's no getting rid of it. So that is the Mary L. Prompt number 2, the emoji is the book, and the prompt for this is best tarot book or guidebook. I didn't choose a tarot guidebook because that felt too difficult and I didn't want to, but my favourite tarot book probably comes as no surprise. It is Radical Tarot by Charlie Claire Burgess. I feel like I talk about this frequently, although I don't think it's popped up so much recently. You can see I've like tabbed this up. I've highlighted through it, and I've written my own little notes in here on occasion, and underlined things that I want to look up. Do we have a bibliography at the back? Yes. Yes, we do. We have notes. We have a bibliography, which is what I like to see. I think this is so fantastic. I love Charlie Claire Burgess. I love everything they produce. I have both of their decks, their tarot and their Marseille. I have used this book like my Bible. This has been my kind of go-to tarot guidebook, handbook, if I have wanted one over the last year or so that I've had this. I do need to sort of move on and read some of the other books that are in my collection, but I just think this is so good. And the way that they approach tarot, there are things that I have sort of underlined in here that feel like they've come directly from my brain. It feels like they've articulated something that I already felt, or something that I like knew in my bones to be true. It like talks about things through the lens of tarot, but in such an expansive, interesting way. And speaking of perspectives from the margins, that is kind of their main, I'd say like the big focus of this book, is queering the tarot and deconstructing the binaries in the tarot and the sort of systems that are in place that you maybe don't question if you don't think about it. Things like the gender hierarchy and the gender hierarchy. The gender hierarchy, oh my goodness, my brain has turned to soup. The gender binary and the hierarchies that are already present in the tarot, which I suppose is the patriarchy, which I think I'm just going to call it the gender hierarchy now. So with the court cards, I really like the way they do the court cards at the end, kind of deconstructing the gender stereotypes and the hierarchy stereotypes that are intrinsic in the court cards, and addressing the way that like the king is above the queen, and often the page is represented as a girl, but the knight is always a boy, and the knight is above the page. And so we've got those gender roles in the archetypes of the card, but then that also is interacting with the levels of hierarchy that we've got going on in the court cards, and the way that they sort of deconstruct that and make it clear that they are interacting with each other. The binary and the hierarchy are interacting with each other. And oh, it's so good. So that is your little reminder that I'm obsessed with this book, and I think you should read it, because I don't think this has been on the channel for a hot minute. Prompt number 3, the emoji for this is the brain, and the prompt is a deck that dives deep in thought. Okay, the deck I went with this is the Raven's Dream Tarot. There is an unboxing of this on the channel. I got this last summer sometime. It's the first printing. This is an indie deck by MJ Cullinane, and it's stunning. I did these edges myself. That's why they look so bad. All of my decks could be said to dive deep in thought, or encourage me to dive deep in thought, because most of my decks are quite thinky. I like to think. I like to think, and I like to think about my thoughts, and I like to think about where those thoughts have come from, and, you know, so on and so forth into oblivion. All that to say, I can dive deep with pretty much any deck, although some definitely lend themselves to it more than others. And the reason I chose this, the Raven's Dream, for this prompt is because of a few different things. So number one, it's kind of surreal, it's kind of abstract, it's kind of not in focus, and it's just removed enough from a kind of realistic portrayal of a scene that it catches your attention in different aspects. I'm just looking at this not symmetry of the shapes, but the shapes. It sort of catches your attention and makes you think about and really notice what's going on in the card. And then also the main reason I think that this is my deep in thought deck is because it is consistent with the Rider-Waite-Smith in meaning. And some of the cards, like here, it's not a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, but we've got our little dog, we've got somebody sort of, this fox kind of is on the edge of the cliff until you realize it's on the raven's beak, and like maybe it's falling off the cliff, and then this is like the danger below maybe. Like, it's interesting. It's Rider-Waite-Smithy, it's not a clone. Some cards more than others, and then some cards are just not at all Rider-Waite-Smith consistent. And I'm looking at it and I'm kind of like, what is going on here? Like, I can't even really figure out what's going on in the image, which again is partly because it's the Raven's dream. It's surreal, it's dreamy. It doesn't really make sense all the time in the way of dreams. And I'm not coming across an example now, but there are some cards where I'm like, what is even happening here? And then you go to the guidebook and you read the guidebook entry and it does make sense, and it comes to the same conclusion in terms of themes and meanings and ideas that any other Rider-Waite-Smith deck might. But it goes about it in a really interesting way. It gets me thinking, because it's going the same place as a lot of Rider-Waite-Smith decks, but it's going by its own route. And I think that's really interesting, because I'm not just reading intuitively and coming up with whatever I think the card might be about. I am trying to get somewhere, but I have to really like work through it. Sometimes with the guidebook, sometimes by just looking at the image and figuring it out for myself. Like, does that make sense? Like, it's not a task, it's not an ordeal to figure out what it means. And the guidebook really is very good. It's not like something like the Labanco Tarot, which I feel like I always have to sit with and figure out what it's trying to say. It's like, I know what it's trying to say, I just got to figure out how it's saying it. So that is my Deep in Thought deck, the Raven's Dream. Prompt number 4, I can count. Prompt number 4, the emoji is the coffee cup or the teacup, and the prompt for this is a deck that feels cozy. I can't figure out if I've done the cozy decks tag or not. It feels like one I should have done. I know it's one I wanted to do. I can't find it on my channel, so maybe you'll get a cozy decks video, especially as we're like in the autumn season. But anywho, the deck I chose for this prompt was the Midnight Magic Tarot. And I know I've discussed this feeling cozy before. This is cozy because it's a nighttime deck. The nighttime is cozy. Not just because it's like dark and you go to bed and you get all snuggled up, but like the daytime, the sun. I love the sun. I love the warmth. I love to be able to see. The sun feels like pressure. The sun feels kind of a little bit stressful. Sometimes the sun is too intense. And maybe that is because I am a sun in Libra, and Libra is either in its detriment or in its fall in Libra. Sorry, the sun is either in detriment or fall in Libra. The sun doesn't like being in Libra because the sun is like all about me and Libra is all about harmony, so it's a bit of friction there. And maybe that's why I don't like the sun feels stressful. Like, I love a beautiful sunny day, but it comes with this sense of like pressure because I want to make the most of the bright, beautiful sunny day. The nighttime's just there. The nighttime just lets you be. And that's a very long-winded way of saying I like this deck because it has black backgrounds and that makes it feel cozy to me. This whole video is very long-winded. I hope that that's what you were wanting because it's what you're getting. And also the mushrooms feel cozy because the mushrooms remind me of walks through the forest in the autumn, or walking the dog of a morning, or just like going for a long stompy walk through a forest. And like, that's not necessarily cozy in and of itself. Like, it's cold, it's windy, the dog is trying to pull your arm off, you step in a puddle or something, I don't know. But like, you come home and you get a warm drink and you get into like dry clothing, or you go to a pub and there's a fire. Like, that's cozy. And that is one of my favorite autumn activities, is to go for a nice bracing walk and then go for a pint at the pub. And that's what this reminds me of. A blustery, brisk autumn day walk, even though it's a nighttime deck. But I'm mixing my metaphors here. This is the Midnight Magic. This is my cozy deck, mainly because of the nighttime, but also the mushroom associations. So there we go. Prompt number 5. The emoji for this is the crossed swords. And the prompt that Han gave was a deck you use for ancestral work, which is not a part of my practice. So I was umming and ahhing over whether to kind of replace it with a different emoji, but then I couldn't decide which one. And so I decided instead to pick a deck that helps me make decisions, ironically enough, because the crossed swords reminds me of the Two of Swords, which is about making decisions, which I am very bad at. And I'm actually, since we're talking about my sun in Libra, I'm actually a second decan Libran. And so the Two of Swords, that's not true. I'm a first decan Libran, and the Two of Swords is my decan card for that first decan of Libra. It's the Two of Swords, which among other things is about sort of making decisions and weighing up options. Anywho, the deck I have for that prompt is the Outgrow Yourself. This is a tarot / oracle. It's based on the Thoth. This is in order at the moment because I'm using it alongside the Thoth for Drop'em 78. And this helps me make decisions because it is just so sharp, it is so cutting, it is so to the point that it sort of jolts me into asking myself the question that gives me the answer. So like here, a lot of these cards are actually questions. Like here are Queen of Discs. How do I start valuing myself? And there's something about answering a question with another question. And I realized I do this a lot actually. I do this in my own personal tarot journal entries. In my journal entry, I'll kind of journal a little bit about what the card means to me in relation to that question in the context of what I'm asking. And then I will end up like asking myself questions based on the card that's come up and based on the context of my initial question. So I'm sort of answering a question with a question, and often I find that answering that secondary question is the answer to my first question. I have said the word question too many times, it has lost all meaning. I did tell you I like to think. I like to think, I like to talk. Even though the deck is sharp and to the point, I am incapable of being sharp and to the point, but it helps me kind of cut out some of the noise. It helps me ask myself the important questions instead of overthinking everything and asking myself every possible question. Choose joy. It helps me remember what's important. And I think with that, I'll stop talking. Prompt number 6, the emoji for this is the crystal, and the prompt is a gilded deck or your favorite gilded deck. I semi-cheated. I have 2 for this. This is where I got with the last recording of this. I got to here, I threw the cards everywhere because this is really slippery cardstock, and then I knocked the camera and it stopped recording. So fingers crossed that doesn't happen again. But this is the Tower of a Moon Garden. This is the edition that was published late last year or early this year, I don't remember, but it is the recent reprint with the borders chopped off, and this delicious metallic purple gilding. I would have pulled Zeke's Arcana, which has metallic pink gilding, but Han pulled that in her original video, so I thought I would try and be original. But I'm not going to lie to you, this gilding is a significant part of the reason I bought this deck. I have wanted this deck for a long time. I think the artwork is just so cool. But I always held off on it because the original version, I think there's been several printings, but the printing that was previously available when I first found this deck a few years ago, it had the decorative borders. So if you haven't seen it, the original has this kind of decorative border around the image of the card. But then the card itself had another white border around the edge of that, and I was just like, I'm not dealing with multiple borders. I wouldn't mind an edition with this decorative border, but I wasn't a fan of the white border around the edge of it, so I never did pick it up. And then this came out and I was like, oh, it's a lovely linen cardstock. And I was in 2 minds about whether I liked the chopped off sides, but this gilding. It's this beautiful Cadbury purple. Which, side note, my vacuum cleaner is this colour. I'm real rambly today, you're getting all sorts of nonsense. And it's just beautiful. And yeah, so that is the gilding. The other deck I pulled for this prompt is the Fairy Tarot, which I edged myself. And this is just, I think, my favourite deck edging I've ever done. I did it in rainbow colours because the faces of the cards have all different coloured borders, and I edged it to match. And it just brings me so much joy every time I pull this deck out, and I think it fits with the vibe of this deck. It's like beautifully colourful and fun, and it's got these rainbow edges. So that is my 2-for-1 answers to the crystal prompt. Question number 7, the emoji for this is the island, and the prompt is a desert island deck, a deck you would take with you to a desert island. And all practicalities of me going to a desert island aside, I think it's the Lilitha. I really struggled to pick a single deck for this, and then I remembered this was a tag and this was supposed to be fun and I needed to calm down. But I pulled the Lillifer because, for one, it's beautiful. I love looking at it. I love shuffling it. I love these gorgeous backs. I like reading it. It's easy for me to read. I get a lot out of it. I don't think I'd get bored of looking at the images. And I think I can get a lot from the images. It's consistent enough with systems that I already know, but also is different. It does its own thing artistically. And then the kind of, I guess, main reason I chose this over any other deck is because it has all of the extra like symbols. We've got the astrology symbols. So we're Mercury, Gemini. In my brain, the pages are always all three of the elements of their suit, but we've got Earth of air for the page. Our Judgment, we've got Pluto here. Why can I suddenly not read glyphs? Mars in Leo here for the Seven of Wands. Jupiter in Gemini for the Eight of Swords. Like, we've got it's got extra information in it. But it's also more artistic than some, like, not more artistic, that's not what I mean. It's more, I don't want to say creative, but there's some, like, as opposed to something like the Thoth, which is beautiful. I love the art, but it's very geometric. It's following a lot of rules. The artwork for this doesn't feel like it's following a lot of specific rules, and it's artwork that you could read very intuitively and kind of just let your eyes wander over it and see what comes up, which I personally am not yet at the stage where I do that with something like the Thoth. This would be my Desert Island deck. It's beautiful, I love working with it, but it's also got a lot to it. And also the guidebook for this is kind of small but mighty. This was, I think this was in my guidebooks video that I did, that actually, did I mention that when I was talking about Radical Tarot? I didn't pick a guidebook, but I do have a whole video about some of my favorite tarot guidebooks, so check that out. This I love because it has like colors and numerology and planetary symbols and some of the zodiac stuff. So it's got like a little primer to a lot of the other systems that have been incorporated into this tarot deck. And I just think I'd have a lot of fun with it. I don't think I'd get bored of it very easily. And it is super, super beautiful. So that is the Lillifer. The next question, the emoji is the moon, and this is your wisest deck, which again, I really struggled with because I'm like, well, lots of my decks are wise. And then in the same breath, I'm thinking they're also just pictures on pieces of cardboard and the wisdom comes from what you make of them, so on and so forth. The deck I settled on was the Reclaim Oracle that actually is by the same creator as the Lillifer Tarot. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize I was putting them back to back until just now. And this is a feelings deck. And the reason I decided this was my wisest deck is because the body knows things, and this is a reminder to feel my feelings. As I've said, I'm very thinky, I'm very in my head, I'm very airy, I'm very mercurial, I'm very third housey. And this is a reminder that I'm actually a person in a body, and your feelings are physical as much as they are a mental neurochemical experience, and the body knows things. And so this is my wisest deck because it brings me back to that fact of like, your body doesn't really know how to lie to you. And even if the body's wrong, even if your body is like an anxious little beastie that gives you a palpitation over something that's not that stressful, it's a real physical thing, and it's a real physical response to whatever is going on, whatever I'm thinking about, whatever I'm feeling, experiencing, thinking, going through. If I can embody my feelings, that is a surefire way to be putting myself on the right path to figuring out a way through and a way out. So the Reclaim Oracle, which also just one of my favorite decks, one of the most valuable oracle decks full stop in my collection. Let's hello. What does the camera not want to focus on? Success. That's a bad omen. Anywho, this is the Reclaim. All right, the penultimate prompt, the emoji for this is the plane, and this is a travel deck, or a deck you take traveling. Recently, this is also a 2-for-1. It's been the Halloween tarot this month because it's a tin edition, it's pocket sized, it's travel friendly, it's seasonally appropriate. I love this deck. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I think it does such a good job of being a Rider-Waite-Smith clone because it's consistent with the Rider-Waite-Smith system. and a lot of the symbols are there. It's also so fun and it really commits to the theme, and I love it for that. So this has been my current sort of everyday carry tarot, and it's a cute little travel size. I frequently also will just travel with whatever tarot deck I'm currently in love with. I'm rarely away for more than a weekend, so I don't have to like think too hard about it. But if I can't decide what I want, if I just want to throw a deck in my bag, it's usually the Morgan Greer, because this is just such a reliable deck. It's also a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, so it's not too out there and weird if I end up reading for somebody. And it's just such a solid reader. It's also like, it's not tiny, but if I put this in a bag, it's not huge. Like the cardstock's really thin. It's a US Games, right? Yeah, it's a US Games deck. This tuck box is held together with sellotape. So I'll chuck the deck in a bag to come out and about with me, but it doesn't take up too much room. I'm somebody who travels with like everything, including the kitchen sink. I like to have a lot of stuff on my person. If you saw my loot drop tag, you would know that already. So I'm not fussed about it not being the tiniest, most convenient deck to carry, and this is small and convenient enough, but it's just such a good reader. It's reliable. What else is there to say? It's such a good deck, and I like reading for other people with this one too. So if I do end up reading for, you know, if I'm with a friend or with my partner or what have you, it works. It's this, or it's a Rider-Waite-Smith clone is what I usually end up traveling with, and I've got a few fun Rider-Waite-Smith clones. I like traveling with something fun. So that's the Morgan Greer. We are down to the final question. The emoji for this is the ribbon, and the prompt for this is the last deck you received as a gift. And I actually have two because I got these on the same day. It was my birthday. The Woodland Warden's Oracle was from my partner's parents, and the Every Little Thing You Do Is Magic Tarot was from my sister. I don't think you needed to know exactly who they were from, but I told you anyway. These have both shown up in videos recently. I did a whole video about the Every Little Thing You Do Is Magic because I wanted to, because I was excited to have this deck. I did a flip through and kind of got picky about some of the artwork, and I did some playing with pairs. There's also a whole additional bonus playing with pairs video with this deck on my Patreon. But I have shown this off recently is my point. So you've seen this. And then the Woodland Warden's Oracle, which is a bit of a YouTube favorite, I think. I see it a lot. And this was also in a recent video. I did a autumnal decks video, and this showed up in that because look at it. Just look at it. It's autumn. It's autumn all over. So this was the other deck that I most recently received. I think it is a wonderful little deck, and I haven't worked with this too much yet. I have, like I said, I did that whole video with the Every Little Thing. This one is still waiting in the wings, but I think I will be pulling it out, especially in this autumn weather. But I'm excited to really work with this. I think either my next video, a soon to be coming video anyway, I'm going to do an Oracle Diaries installment where I'm just playing with pairings and trying to work through, figure out what kind of reading I want to use different decks for, and the decks that I could use as like tarot spread prompts, and the decks that could be clarifiers, and so on. So keep an eye out for that. I will definitely feature this in that video when I make it. And that is everything. That is all 10 prompts. I have got to the end of this without deleting the footage, so pray for me. If you're seeing this video, it means I managed not to accidentally delete the footage a third time. There's no way I'm refilming this again, so we've got everything crossed. Anyhow, that is it from me. That was the tarot emoji match. I've written it down. You'd think I'd have checked this. But tarot emoji match tag from Simply Han. I will of course link her channel, her original video in the description box below. October's been rough, so a fun tag video is what was needed. So I will let you go. Thank you so much for watching. If you have made it this far, I really hope you have enjoyed. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what your responses would be. Oh, tag me tag me, tell me if you've done a VR to this. Do check out my Patreon if you want to see more from me. If you want a reading from me, my Etsy is always linked in the description as well. Thank you so much for being here. Give me a like if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.